Hi, I'm Christian. We're Crowland. We're a narrative gaming channel, and today I would like to talk about DC20, new game that's just coming out. I love it. I've run 2 sessions of it now. It's completely blown me away. But we need to go back in time a little bit. You might remember back in 2022, Wizards of the Coast, the subsidiary of Hasbro Corporation, tried very slyly to transform their open gaming license. That is the ability to publish rules for D&D, a little bit of the D&D trade dress, and they tried to change it at the expense of the third-party publishers. The open gaming license, the OGL, started in the third edition. Basically, open license software was a big deal at the time. OGL is great. It was responsible for that first generation of third-party publishers who became things like Monty Cook, Malhavoc, Alderac, Paizo, there, OGL. I produced my own book, Wiggerpunk, and the upcoming book, Starpunk, under the OGL. It is a good and fair deal. It made money for everyone, and because something that was producing really interesting stuff and not the fairly vanilla stuff that Wizards was producing, I came back to D&D. A lot of people came back to D&D. But suddenly, with the OGL being changed, it looked like my IP was going to be impinged on. Our profits would be impinged on. We would be subject to rules that would hobble us creatively. And that dog won't hunt, Monsignor. It will not hunt. But more than that, I just didn't like the way they do business. I haven't for a long time. And honestly, I don't think 5e D&D is a particularly great game. Good games don't have balancing issues constantly. They don't have all these niggling, stupid rules. A good game would make high-level play fun. It would police power creep. Good game doesn't roll out slop like Four Elements Monk or the Purple Dragon Knight on the regular. It doesn't make things like, why is dual wield so lackluster? And what I can see of 1D&D suggests the problems will be repeated. And it's not that they can't get better, it's that they won't. WotC are creatively stuck, and they're hindered by their ruinous managerial team. So not wanting to deal with all of that, I've been doing a lot of OSR games, old school Renaissance, and they're okay. I like the OSR vibe. It prizes simplicity, brevity, tends to attract a lot of really unique worlds and settings, but I've been wanting more than yesterday, Nostalgia has its charms, but it stagnates you. The good news is that loads of publishers stepped up when Wizards did turn to the dark side, and we've had a lot of new and interesting games that that tried to create a new, better, workable D&D. Most of them are pretty good. Tales of the Valiant, I think it's a bit underwhelming. It just feels like, look at new fresh paint on L5E. Shadowheart's fun, but I still think it's just a bit too like 5e. Daggerheart, Matt Mercer's new thing. I've only played one session of it, and its card mechanics are just a bit too gimmicky. It's not the thing that's going to replace D&D as your heroic fantasy game. MCDM seems good. Colville's no dummy, he knows what he's to do. But I think that perhaps D&D DC20 is the best of those OGL response games. I think it'll be enough of a bridge between D&D and a new game, because, there's that whole contingent of people who are like, no, role-playing is D&D. But DC20 is in the language of D&D. You will know how to play this game very quickly if you can play D&D. So I was very open to DC20 when I first heard about it. In fact, I was fascinated because it seemed exactly what I wanted, and it turned out to be exactly what I wanted. It was a genuine, generational, evolutionary, rhizomatic growth of the basic D&D engine. DC20 is the 6th edition, at least for me. It is so much more exciting than 1D&D, from which the little I've seen is just a lick of fresh paint. And besides, it's still Wizards, and I don't trust Wizards as a corporation or as designers anymore. Now, before I go on though, I should just say DC20 is not the D&D killer. D&D has its own place in pop culture, it has its own special place in the market. There is no D&D killer. Nothing will kill WotC but WotC. Eventually players will get sick enough of their antics. I think that's already happening. I'm seeing life at lifetime D&D guys going like, I'm a bit sick of this. So DC20. It was written by a man who works under the name of Dungeon Coach. And like me, the coach was a former World of Warcraft no-lifer. He stumbled onto D&D by accident. Converts, we all know this, are the best zealots. He got deep into D&D, but he was also a maths teacher. Now, firstly, I think that the maths teacher background is interesting because you really want a guy who's good with maths as a game developer. Math. It's maths. I'm sorry, Americans. Math. But anyway, Coach saw a better way to arrange the numbers. And secondly, he didn't seem to have any fidelity to Gary Gygax's sacred writ. He didn't have the decades-long history with it that many people do. If you found things that were not working in D&D, Coach cut it, rebuilt better. And what I think he's really achieved is that he created D&D as a user-facing experience. It is D&D. It's recognizably the D20 engine, but it's just more fun. Now, let's talk about the rules. I'm not the world's hugest rules guy. I'm not going to be able to go like, oh, I found some balance issues here. I'm just going to tell you the stuff that I really enjoyed that really stuck out to me. Firstly, the stats. There is 4 stats. They're rated 1 to 5. Might, agility, intelligence, charisma. I think they should have changed intelligence to wisdom, just the word. Wisdom is more of a fantasy word. That stat is your bonus. So if you've got a charisma check that you need to make, DC10, you add 4 charisma. You add +4 if your charisma is 4. No more rounding out stats at the expense of a feat you might want. No more, wait, what's the bonus for 16 again? That should have been done years ago. It should have been in 4th. Importantly, one of those stats is called the prime, and essentially you pick the stat that you want your class to work off. That is your prime. So if you want to be a charismatic barbarian, say you want to scream your enemies to death, make charisma your barbarian's prime. Do you want to be a muscle wizard? Strength is your wizard prime. Do you want to be a dex paladin? Dex is your prime. I've always wanted to make a really smart fighter, right? A really canny operator. You can do that in DC20. Do you want to make like a big Bolo Young style strength monk? Or a strength cleric who's like, I serve the hammer gods. You can do that. Anything that gives players a way to embody their fantasies is great to me as a long-time GM. If you are a player, this game will let you make that PC that you always wanted, but is mechanically subpar, and that's gone. Skills are mainly key to the stats, so if you want to do really big brain stuff, you can't just go, oh, I use Dex to translate the scroll. No, the translating the scroll comes off intelligence. So, it's still D&D. The prime mainly affects your combat. Then there's the usual classes, but Warlord's back, which is good. They were fourth said best idea. No one's played one in my games yet, but the people who have seem to absolutely love it. There's a psychic class as well, but I don't really like psionics in my fantasy. And all the classes really feel like the fantasy that they are. A mage feels like a mage. A cleric feels like a cleric. Good example. Warlocks. If you're playing a warlock, the chances are good that you want to play a dark, what we call edgy now, kind of a character. So warlocks have a lot of life draining and soul draining abilities. They feel dangerous. They feel like they've got dark magic. Monks are constantly slipping between defensive and offensive modes. They can move very quickly around the battlefield. They are fantastic. One of the features that I really like is that mages cast arcane runes on the ground, and if they stand in it, they gain bonuses. That being said, is that if someone takes it away from them, they can get the bonuses too. It's very Warcraft, that whole rune under your feet. Rangers, great in the wild, much simpler and easier than what 5e is. What I really like about fighters always feel very competent. They feel like they've got an answer for everything. Monk key powers are simply just much better than 5e's are. Monks don't feel like a sucker's choice anymore. Sorcerers are rad. What they do is that they have an ability where they can actually sort of endanger their own life, endanger their own hit points to supercharge their magic. So if you really want to, put yourself in danger, but you want to do like huge big fireballs, take a sorcerer. Clerics are very, very customizable, but I think that the most interesting thing is that the god is active in your character sheet. It's top stuff. So if you want to to deal with a divine creature. You don't want to deal with a god. Play a cleric. I think this immediately challenges one of my biggest problems with 5e, and that you could be the most role-playing role player of all time. You could turn up to every session with your character's hat on and pointy elf ears, but if you have a suboptimal character, which you very well might, because you're going to lionize your role-playing over your build, and it sucks. It sucks when your class is really, really bad, even if you desperately want to play it. That's gone. Subclasses don't start till level 3. Yeah, okay, but it's mitigated by the fact that, generally speaking, your class comes online at level 1. You feel like what you are when you play it. No more waiting, like 3 sessions to become what you really, really want. So now, let's talk about combat. Initiative. I would think I would do you a bit of a disservice if I tried to explain initiative straight off the bat. I'm not very good at explaining rules. I just, read this. But it's much, much more fluid. There's no real reason that a high dex character must go first. I think that the rules are cleverly designed to take into account the narrative of the RPG as well. It flows, it moves, and if you want, that's my dog, and if you want to create a much more complicated battlefield, initiative in DC20 really sets that up. So that's initiative. It's interesting. I think a really impressive change from D&D is that all martial classes, like the monk, the barbarian, anyone who has an axe or a sword, they have maneuvers and techniques. Maneuvers operate something like cantrips. They are on-demand effects. They won't be awesome combat-winning huge moves, but they make combat more interesting. You've always got something to do besides I roll to attack. They're very, very fun. Techniques, they're class-specific, and they're the going Nova cool moves, volley of arrows, mashing up some scumbag's armor, a strong defensive style when you know that dragon is there to deep breath your ass. Many of the techniques have an offensive and defensive mode, and they're all just really, really cool. Just tops. They're very similar to feats. Nothing jumped out as immediately OP. There's no sort of must-haves I've noticed to make a build work. They felt really great to my players. They supported the playstyles that they wanted to work in. They didn't overpower the game ever. A player of mine who always likes to play some form of caster, he became quite jealous of the fighter who was doing like huge whirlwind attacks. Really fun. I noticed in combat, immediately people were having to make interesting choices supported by their options. But more importantly, DC20 really rewards working together. You push him up into the wall, I'll get advantage of him. You protect the mage while she powers up. Teaming up. It's very intuitive too. Sometimes I just ask players what they wanted to do. Don't worry about the rules, just describe it to me. And they were there to support it without having to haggle over, okay, no, you can only do this on a bonus action, not as a reaction. None of that stuff. If you want your games to feel epic, which is a dumb term, but if you want your game to feel epic, even at lower levels, letting the players do the cool things they always wanted to do, that is epic. Not with 20th level magic, but letting players pull off teamwork. Now all these powers are fueled by stamina, at least melee powers. Stamina is a very fluid stat, it's constantly being spent, it's constantly being renewed. If you're a rogue, you get stamina back by attacking people with conditions on them, or if they're flanked. So fighting dirty, it powers you up. Playing rogue the way a rogue should be played powers up the rogue. Barbarians get stamina back from hitting hard and taking hard hits. So if you don't want to be there, like on the front lines, smacking dudes in the face as hard as you can, do not play Barbarian. If you do, if that is your playstyle, you as a person, not you as a PC, play Barbarian. It's very easy. Spellcasters that have stamina, they have mana. Same sort of thing. Do certain things, get mana back. No more 5-minute workday for the mage. No more, wait, we need a short rest before I go on. A lot of spells have alternative uses as well. There's other twists. You can give most spells, Like changing the damage type is a particular favorite of mine. So if you want to do a lightning bolt, but you're trying to play like an evil necromancer type, you just cast necrotic lightning bolt. Call it death bolt. Cool, done. You want to play a mage who specializes in shadow or fire magic. Flavor your mage with a lot of fire and shadows type stuff. Druid shape changing, it's robust, but it's not OP. There's no more turning into a bear and then a T-Rex, which is good because that sucks and no one liked it but the Druid. The amount of times that I've seen like an encounter just turn to nothing because of a Druid. Anyway, leaving that be, doing away with the diabolical spell slot system alone would make me love DC20. Casting is just much, much more fun than D&D. Straight up, it is more fun. More spells can be cast in multiple ways. I love counterspelling. It feels like an actual spell duel. I mainly play casters, and it's always bothered me that I get to say one sentence in a round if I'm those rare times I'm playing. Now I have to roll for all my dice as well. I feel like I get to throw the bones. I feel like I get to interact with the game rules, which a fighter does all the time. But suddenly as a mage, I'm doing it as well. Seems really, really fun. Actions. I think this is very much a Pathfinder influence. Everyone gets 4 actions a turn. Attack, move, cast. You know the kind of things you can do. You are disincentivized from just attacking 4 times, as repositions cause advantage and then disadvantage stacks. So if you're just, I don't know what to do, 3 attacks, you're at double disadvantage. Roll 3d20, take the lowest. Also, your reactions come from that pool, so be judicious. Do you want to have a few moves to make during the bad guy's turn? There's no more buggerizing around, all that stuff. It's just very, very simple. 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. Done. Combine this with that interesting, I think that if there's one criticism that can be made immediately, it's that the initiative is clever, but it can be a little bit complicated. Although, I think it's worth the payoff because suddenly I felt like I was playing a war game. I felt like I was playing, like Necromunda tactical game, because you want to make use of everybody else's abilities. You want to make use of your own 4. You want to maximize your 4 actions, so you have to think about it a little bit. Formations matter. Working together is both mechanically easy. This is not just I do the help action. It's much more involved in that. It's also very, very worthwhile. It took my players a little bit of time to get that all that helping actions and all that supporting one another within the combat. It took them a little while to get that up and running, but when they did, suddenly they were having in-character discussions about tactics that they might try, abilities they might want to use to win a boss fight. GMs, are you listening to me? The players were making role-playing decisions about combat in combat. Suddenly, combat became a focus of role-playing and of teamwork. I had players I've known for a while who weren't the most invested in the acting parts, in the actual role-playing. Suddenly, they're getting excited, they're talking in-character action about why they like their axe, because the axe had a nice little bleed effect on it. It's tops. I should just say, hit points and damage as well. It's all in very, very small numbers, which takes a little bit of getting used to. Now, this is good for me. I'm a little bit dyscalculic. Sometimes numbers just don't, what I see, just are what the numbers actually are. I sometimes just straight up get them wrong too. And the higher, the worse it is. So, this is really fantastic to me. I'm adding 2 and 2, not like 12, 9, 6, 5, which of course speeds up the combat round. Wouldn't that be fun? No more waiting around for a long period to take your turn. You do it, it's quick, it's done. It's very, very cool. Traditionally, combat is my least favorite part of RPGs, right? But in DC20, I was really enjoying it because it was linked to the role-playing. Also, I really like running my monsters with a few cool combos as well, so that's fun. Man, what else? Masteries, especially combat masteries, are particularly fun. They felt like proficiencies in 2nd edition to me, although it's been a while since I had a look at 2nd edition. Families of weapons that you get to apply your mastery bonuses to, basically. Very simple, very effective. You get trade skills separate to class skills. So if part of your character concept is, say, you want to be a hobbit chef, right? Or your bard wants to create a beautiful opera or anything like that, you do not have to drop an important combat power or an important combat skill to RP the kind of character that you want. Those things are not in competition with each other. Awesome. The one thing I like as well is that big rolls count. If you roll 5 over a difficulty test, it's a big success. Maybe more damage, maybe a higher level of success, you know, the kind of thing. Now, when you've got a big bonus and then you roll like an absolute mother flipper, it feels great. It feels great to me as a GM. It feels great as a player. It means also that I'm invested in every roll that I make. Ancestry is what we used to call races. All the typical fantasy ones are here, 5e style. So it's elf, dwarf, whatever, you know. Also, if you want to make an unusual character like half elf, half goblin, done. Multiclassing is sensible. It's not broken as hell anymore. No more hexblade sorceress smiting at vast numbers. And no more dumb concepts just to be powerful. No more having to take a polearm when you really wanted to take a sword. Or needing to take 3 fighter levels because that's the only way to make your PC work, even though you don't want to be a fighter for 3 levels. It's great. Probably cheese here, but there's nothing that immediately leapt out to me. Sometimes people like cheese, but as a GM it can be unimpressive to me when 1 or 2 characters, land druids, just flat out win. They win Dungeons and Dragons, you know. That's all gone. Sorry, power gamers, you will have to impress with your personalities. Dungeon Coach's iconoclastic approach to D&D is exactly what was needed to make D&D fun. No word on the campaign setting right now. I suspect it's going to be very influenced by Warcraft, which is fine. It is a great setting. DC20 is made for homebrew anyway. I am looking forward to running a Star Warsy space opera with it when I see some naval rules. I think you'd have the basis for a good superhero game as well here. Very hackable. Holy moly, I really like this game, guys. It works on every level that I think makes an RPG fun. And again, do not make any mistake. This is a more fun game than D&D. I think Crowland is going to start third-party publishing for it. It's under the Orc license, which is great. So no need for them to be like, you know, drinking some evil juice and turning on Mr. Hyde like What's he did. Loads of stuff up on YouTube about it. DC20. A lot of important YouTubers and tastemakers have weighed in on it. They've all given it the big thumbs up. So far, I cannot recommend DC20 enough. It is completely reignited my interest in the heroic fantasy genre. I think you should get it, and I think that it will be a more successful campaign for you as a GM, and I think that as a player, you will be more invested in your character than you are in D&D. But what about you? Do any of these D&D killers we've been talking about work for you? Are you D&D only forever? Why? But if you are, can I ask you to at least give DC20 a go? And if you like it, why don't you try Call of Cthulhu? Why don't you try Pendragon? Do you want to play Macho Women with Guns with me? I have a copy of Macho Women with Guns. It's in my garage. I can go and get it, and we can play Macho Women with Guns. That's it. DC20. I love it. Why don't you subscribe? Why don't you give me a like as well? I never get any likes. Give me some likes. I love likes. I'm Christian. This is Crowland. Look out for our Kickstarter in August 2024. Starpunk. See you guys soon.